G'day you cheeky dogs, today we are going to be breaking down the Bluey episode Fairies.
Know what this means?
What?
We've got fairies!
And of course, we are going to be talking about whether fairies are real or not within the Blueyverse. As well though, of course, going through the insane amount of Easter eggs in this episode as well, movie and pop culture references, the Aussie slang, the animation areas, as well as like my overall thoughts and feelings about the message and lesson in this, and some of the issues that people had with it as well. We'll talk about all that as well.
Give me a bingo! Let go! Sorry, you need to give me 4.
But first, if you're new here and you love Bluey as much as I do, don't forget to hit that like button down below, as well as that subscribe button and that bell for notifications so you know whenever I release a new Bluey video. So let's roll intro and get into fairies. G'day cheeky dogs, my name's Margie and I'm an Australian currently living in America. Now I'm gonna start off with all the movie and pop culture references just because I think they're so cool and there's a lot in this episode compared to other episodes as well. And I feel like the most obvious one is the Lord of the Dance one as well, because Bandit literally says it.
I am the Lord of the Dance!
Of course, if you didn't know, The Lord of the Dance is a famous Irish dancing show similar to Riverdance as well. It's like Riverdance and Lord of the Dance. They're like the top 2 famous Irish shows. So I love, of course, that they reference that in this with the Irish dancing as well. The next one is the Gladiator reference, which definitely I think, again, is sort of for the adults who have already seen that movie.
Is this not why you are here? Is this what you want, fairies? Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
We do also have the Simpsons reference that you might have missed, and that's like the squiggly stink lines that Bingo draws.
Hey, why have I got stink lines coming off me?
The fairies must think you stink.
What?
Aw, jeez, and you got the stink lines and everything?
Bluey's put in a lot of Simpsons references before, like the episode Bike is one of the most like commonly known ones, but this one definitely I think relates to like the Moe's drawing with the stinky lines. We also have when Bandit's like cursing the fairies. Now this appears in like a lot of different media, this whole like curse you meme and things like that, but I do think for me it reminded me a lot of Finding Nemo.
Curse you, fairies! Curse you, Aqua Skull!
Also, the curse you line was removed in Disney Junior in Southeast Asia. Again, not surprising. They are really, really heavy on their edits of Bluey. We also have a Japanese reference with Studio Ghibli and the movie Porco Rosso, one of my favorite Studio Ghibli films and just such a really cool one. We see this with the plane that Bingo, or the fairy, we don't know who, has set up in the lounge room. It's all the way down on shoelaces. They give it a whole still frame, and this is hands down meant to represent Porco Rosso in his plane as well. We've seen a lot of these Studio Ghibli toys before in Bluey, and the artists have talked about it on Twitter as well, how they're big fans of Studio Ghibli, and that's their way of like changing the colors a little bit, but like still adding it in so it's obvious what it is.
I think they want you to fairy dance around our letterbox.
What?
And then the last one, of course, is the Titanic reference, and this, of course, is just with the music at the end. The music that they're doing their little like Irish dance and jig to is of course the exact same music that we see Jack and Rose dancing to in the Titanic. Now the next one I'm going to go through is our like traditional Easter eggs, because we see all 4 of them in this episode. The long dogs, the tennis balls, the pineapple, and Chattermax as well. So the long dog in this episode is one of like the really coolest ones, because again it's in a flash and you'll miss it kind of scene. So the long dog is a macaroni piece of pasta that you can see in the pantry, but only when they do the flash by scene. We see 3 pineapples in total. One of them is in the lounge room as a vase. We also see one on the poster in the garage, as well as one on the surfboard in the garage as well. We see a total of 19 tennis balls, which absolutely has to be a record for Bluey. There's one on the lounge room painting. We of course have the 2 tennis ball bouquets in the living room, which totals to 16 tennis balls, as well as one on the shelf, and of course 1 tennis ball that's being used as the cricket ball outside. And then lastly we have Chattermax, and this is actually our first time seeing Chattermax as well, and he is in the little like fairy rings outside in the lawn.
All right, this is a fairy. If you see one, whack it.
So let's talk about the fairies now, and it's just such an interesting concept, I think, about the idea of magic in Bluey, and I've talked about that before with the episode Magic as well. I'll leave a link for it up here and at the end of the video. But obviously, like, magic in Bluey, like, it's a whole thing that people constantly are debating on Reddit all of the time. And is magic real? Is it not? Are fairies real? All that sort of thing. And think it's so important that it's Bingo's the one who sees the fairy, obviously, at the end, but also she's the one who also says how you see fairies, and I feel like that gets missed sometimes.
But they're invisible. You have to look for fairies with your heart.
And I love that she says with your heart, because again, of course, she sees the fairy with the love heart that she has made in particular for this episode. So again, just like a little bit of a tie-in there with hearts and seeing fairies with your heart, that kind of link.
What is it, Bingo?
Look.
Oh, wow. It's a love heart.
But this, of course, is a very Bingo-centric episode, and in all the other Bingo-centric episodes we have, they tend to be more magical or more surreal. So really reflecting on that idea of how younger kids really have that more magical sense of the world and how everything seems like magic for them.
You got my butt cheek!
And again, that plays into this. Like, you have to look for fairies with your heart. You can't use your mind or logic to try and look for fairies.
Maybe one of us hurt the fairy's feelings?
And I also love the tie-in that Bingo is the fairy in the episode Blue Mountains as well. So she really has like a big belief for fairies in general.
And also a little fairy.
Oh yes, and also a little fairy.
So in Bingo's mind, yeah, fairies are real, and that fairy she saw is absolutely real to her. Was it the fairy though that set up the dominoes, or was it Bandit who set up the dominoes? Because we know, of course, that Bandit... It's a whole thing with this episode. A lot of people seem to have like an issue because they think that Bandit shouldn't have had to have gone through it all or apologized because he technically did nothing wrong.
What? I'm not rewarding naughty behaviour.
But I think this again pulls into the idea of why is Bandit doing this? And it's not because he did anything wrong. He's doing it because Bingo's feelings are hurt, not because of like him not listening to her or dropping everything to go to her at once. He's doing it because her feelings are hurt. That's why.
If I've ever hurt your feelings, I'm really sorry, mate. Must feel really bad when your dad does that.
So I do love this idea of whether it was Bandit who's the one who set up the heart, because that, again, it's him representing to Bingo that he knows what that was for her and how much that meant to her. And that's why he's like, oh yeah, look, a love heart.
Hey, who set up my dominoes again?
So I do think it leaves it like a little bit open-ended as to like how you want to view this. If you want to view it as Bandit was the one who went to the extra effort of setting up the dominoes for Bingo.
For Dad, it's a love heart.
Oh, 'cause you love your dad.
Yeah.
Or if it really was a fairy that set them up and there is like that little like tinge of magic in Bluey. I feel like I love the magic in this episode, and I myself want to believe that fairies exist in the BLUEYVERSE and believe in that magic of children. I think that's just a really nice sort of idea in it. But cheeky dogs, let me know down below though. Do you believe that fairies exist in the BLUEYVERSE, or do you believe that it was just Bingo being her age and believing more in the magical and fantasy of the world? Also, that fairy was not the first design. Something really cool is that Catriona, one of the art directors of Bluey, she actually put out on Twitter all the different designs that she had for the fairies as well. And it's really cool just to see some of the different ideas that they had and then what they ended up going with in the end as well. So I think that's something really cool to look at. Now, of course, every scene has just so much extra detail in it because those fairies are busy. But I kind of just want to go through each scene leading up to the fairy and just all the details in it that maybe you might have missed.
My heart says they're under here. It's just terps.
So, starting with the garage, which is obviously very heavily themed with sports and very much with like Chili and Bandit's sport trophies as well. So Chili, of course, is holding a hockey stick and we see the hockey trophy just up behind her as well. Next to that is a footy shield, and we know that Bandit, of course, loves playing footy with his mates, so I definitely think that belongs to him.
Oh look, did he just score a try?
I think he did.
We also see a squash trophy as well, which again, in future episodes, squash, we know that Bandit plays, so that one belongs to him.
So it begins. 1-0.
We also see a galah, which is a pink cockatoo as like a statue behind Chili. A stop sign as well, which makes me wonder, like, did they steal this stop sign from somewhere? Like, why is it there? Like, it reminds me of something that you would do when you're like a teenager kind of thing. Again, playing into the idea that perhaps this house was Bandit's family home and maybe him and his brothers took that sign when they were teenagers. I know, that's like a mini theory in this. But then we also have Bandit's cricket bat, which does have a little Easter egg on it as well. And that is either 1A, 1C9 or IAIC9. And I have no idea what it means. And it's so frustrating because usually these tend to match up with like the color codes for like what it's on or things like that. But this doesn't really match up with any color code. And I did throw it out on Instagram as well as on Reddit, but again, everyone seems to kind of be pulling a blank on this one. And so frustrating when this happens. So if you have any idea what this code means, let me know down below. And yes, I know it does mean something because they do this all the time in Bluey, and usually we figure out what it is. But this one case, I did not.
Oh no!
So, moving on from the garage, let's go outside to the lawn where they're playing in the little fairy rings and of course dancing in them as well. Now we see Rocco calling Bandit on his phone, which is a really cool little nod to that character. We also see speakers that have a little paw print on them. We see the tablet from the episode Grannies that they had called their grandma on. We also see the teapot and teacup set. I've mentioned this before, but it's obviously a reference to Beauty and the Beast with the teapot and teacup. Then we also see another tablet which belongs to the girls that we also saw in the episode Bob Bilby playing the same cartoon we saw from that episode as well. Moving then to the details inside the house.
Oh, Bandit, really?
It was the fairies!
Starting off with the pantry. Now we see the Nutella down the bottom with the dog bone on it, which I think is a cute little nod to like, we know chocolate is bad for dogs, so this one having the dog bone on it, I guess means it's like safe Nutella for dogs, so that's a fun little extra detail. Outside of the pantry as well, we see the Bob Bilby and Bingo picture, which is so cute. And also like this little dog plaque, like as a chef with the fire, which is like an interesting detail that I haven't really seen before, but I guess it's like one of those like kitchen-y kind of things.
Come quickly!
The living room, of course, though, is probably like the most extreme Easter egg filled room because it is just intense what happened with it. And whether it was the fairies or Bingo who did it, either way, it's quite incredible. So I figured we'll break it down to all like the Australian Easter eggs first and then all the other Easter eggs that are in this room. So for the Australian ones, we see 4 koalas in total. We also see a cockatoo, a blue-tongued lizard, a kangaroo, 5 pieces of fairy bread. Fairy, I love that they added this in. Like it could have been like any Australian food, but they chose to use fairy bread for the fairy episode. So I think that's just like a cute little parallel there. They have a bunch of pluggers or thongs, as we like to call them, on the wall and going all the way onto the footprint fossil as well. And I thought this is something really cool. The footprint fossil is actually a fossil of like a dinosaur stampede, which is really, really unique and ties into Joe Brumm, which is just insane. So Joe Brumm grew up in the town called Winton in Queensland, Australia. Yes, Winton, the character, is named after that town, Winton. But Winton is also really famous for dinosaur fossils as well, and one in particular fossil, the dinosaur stampede fossil. So it's just like this really cool thing that they've added in. Like not only the fact that Joe Brumm like grew up in the town Winton with this fossil in real life and he's included it in the show, but of course it links into Bandit being an archaeologist and Joe Brumm's older brother is an archaeologist. Just one of those like full circle things, but yeah, just a really cool extra little Easter egg there. Now I already mentioned the porco rosso plane and dog and that reference there, but the other cool little details that the fairies or Bingo did was turning the couch into the healer's car. Like it's orange like their Jeep. She's used records to make the wheels, and I love that it's just got a picture of Bandit that has like scribbly lines all over it as well. Kind of reminds me of Magic Xylophone sitting there as like the driver for it.
Well, you know what you have to do.
Oh no.
And then of course the very last scene that we have is them being outside and we see the neighbors playing cricket as well as the twins Zara and Bentley playing with judo. So Zara and Bentley are Bingo's age, so it's kind of interesting, like why are they there? Like do they obviously know judo somehow? But something really fun that ties all the way into season 3C with the episode Cricket is of course Lucky and Rusty playing cricket together. And 2 very fun things here. The first one, that Rusty of course hits the ball out of the park on his first one. We've seen how good Rusty is at cricket, so we see this again here. But also that his cricket bat is blue and red, which could be literally any team in Brisbane. But even better.
Tell you what, we'll get Rusty out and then play Tiggy.
You'll never get Rusty out.
I think I can handle it.
The whole episode Cricket is about the fact that it is impossible to get Rusty out. Like, just no one can do it except for Lucky. Lucky does it in this episode thanks to help from Bandit. So it's just kind of like one of those really funny looking back kind of jokes now. So a couple of extra little details though are the Aussie words in this. I saw people actually bring up the whole idea of calling it a love heart. Yeah, that's what we call them in Australia. Like if you draw a heart, you're drawing a love heart. Like that's what you would say. Like this is your heart and that's a love heart.
But Dad, it's a love heart.
And I didn't realize that wasn't something that other people don't say, like in other countries, because I'd said it to my husband as well, and he's like, why do you keep saying love in front of it? I'm like, because it's a love heart. So yeah, it seems that that's like a very Aussie thing that we say.
Oh, wow. It's a love heart.
The other thing I saw pop up in Reddit, ooh, that was a fast one, was what is terps? Terps is turpentine. It's like what you use to like strip paint away. So yeah, in Australia, we love shortening all of our words. So turpentine, much too long for us to say, so we say terps instead.
It's just terps.
There is one little animation error in this that you probably would have missed, but when they are in the garage as well, the clothespin line, the sock goes from behind to in front of the clothesline. So just like a little error there, but you know, that's nothing. So overall, I guess the message of this episode seems to get a lot of people, I don't know, kind of tied up with how they feel about it. Because a lot of people feel that Bandit shouldn't have had to have apologized to Bingo because she was the one interrupting him. And it's just like a scenario that would happen in real life. He asked her to wait, all that sort of thing. But I saw someone on Reddit explain this really well. And again, I might do a deep dive into this a little later on. But I think it's really important to notice that, like, Bingo's a child. She has no idea what's going on. In her head, she's just put in a lot of effort to make this thing for her dad. And she's so excited to share it with him. And she's gone to ask him to look. And she's, like, quite urgent about it.
I'm just going to type this work email.
Come on, Dad.
Bingo, let go, mate. Yeah, hey,
I
look,
just
I'll
wanna
just
show you
explain it.
something.
What you need...
He, of course, doesn't understand. He's on the phone and she's just filled with urgency as a child. And her dad basically goes from 0 to 100 really quick for her. Like, he goes from saying, like, hang on, and then just yells at her.
Okay, hang on, kid. Bingo, let go, mate. Yeah, hey, look, Bingo, let go.
Which, to a child, that's quite dramatic, obviously, especially for a child that age. And I think that's what's important. Like, you got to remember that these are children who are young. They don't have the same comprehension as adults. They don't understand patience the same way. We saw that in the episode Wagon Ride. So I think it's just one of those situations where, like, people seem to just be thinking that, like, Bingo should totally understand what's happening. She's a child. And I think that's what this episode is meant to be about, is that we don't forget that children are children and we shouldn't expect them to completely understand the situation. And that's what Bandit does at the end of this episode. He says sorry for hurting her feelings, not for telling her that she wasn't patient or anything like that. He just says, like, you know, he is sorry for hurting her feelings. That must suck when your dad does that. And I think, again, that's just a really nice way of showing that parents can apologize to kids and it's okay. Like, it's not giving in to them. It's not spoiling them. But it's just showing that version of gentle parenting and how to help a child get through a situation where they have hurt feelings in a really fun way. Obviously, they've played fairies before. They've talked about this, like when they're in the pantry and other situations.
How would this one of us go about trying to fix things with the fairies?
So I think that's just what it's meant to be. It's a really fun episode, but it's meant to show the idea of how an adult can apologize to a child for hurting their feelings, because that's just what's gonna happen. And it's okay to do that as well, I think. But I don't know, cheeky dogs, let me know in that comment section down below what you think of the message from this episode, because it does seem to be very, like, hit and miss with a lot of people as well. So I do think that's really interesting. Overall for me though, this episode, I loved it. Like, I really did really enjoy it. I think it's one of those really magical episodes filled with all the Easter eggs. So it is a 5 out of 5 for me, and especially the music and all the movie references, like, just amazing from my standpoint and the things that I love in this show. I absolutely loved it. But while you're letting me know down below what rating you would give this episode out of 5 long dogs, don't forget to hit that like button as well as that subscribe button and that bell for notifications so you know whenever I release any other Bluey videos. Until then though, I have picked you cheeky dogs out a few other videos that maybe you might have missed, and I will see you all in another video. Mwah! Bye!